let's just take it back a little bit, to the start. Obviously, I know you from back in the day. You were a similar age to me, but you was an age group above, and I think we started racing at a similar age. I remember seeing you at the sort of national events when I started going to them, and you were always like super fast in your age group. So yeah, tell us a bit about how you first got into to BMX and how you found it, and then we'll go on from there.
Yeah, no, I think we were on this similar kind of paths. Me and you, I've listened to some of your podcasts and obviously known you, and talking about it over the years. Yeah, I think I got a BMX Christmas 80, 81.
Mm-hmm.
Started racing during 82.
Mm-hmm.
83 was my first full year. Started racing in Nottingham. Live in a place called Heanor, which is right in between Nottingham and Derby.
Okay.
So I'd get the best worlds of both. We had the Derby Greyhound Stadium track, and then onto, the track what's still there now, where they just had the British Championships at Alveston Park. And then there was always a good scene in Nottingham as well. I started at Nottingham Outlaws, or it was called Bunnies at the time. Again, another track that's still healthy and riding and regional races there. So between the two, yeah, first full season, 83, rode for a local bike shop called Bunnies GT.
Yeah, I remember.
Yeah, a really good team at the time. Guys coming from Bunnies GT, Geth Shooter, a few of you guys might be familiar with that name. A lot of local great guys, Mark Cranknell, Ian Dixon, we had a girl called Nicola Dogwell. I think at some point we were national #1 bike shop team.
Yeah.
So I had okay success the first year, 83, started to get international finals, probably towards the end, got a few podiums. And then by 84,
So
really kind of
who was winning
came
that?
into it.
Who was winning? Because that's kind of when I first started doing some nationals and stuff in '83. Was that when Damien Miles was national #1?
Yeah, a lot of guys from your area, we would, my dad always, wanted us to follow the competition. So we spent even that first, 83, 84, we spent a lot of time driving up to Wigan, Three Sisters, for the competition, as all the fastest guys in the country came from there. You had Damien Miles, factory hutch, and then went on to Mongoose. Unfortunately, passed away, many years ago with cancer. But Damien was kind of the first superstar in our age group in the magazines, and
Yeah.
yeah, just a really good guy. And then you had Andy Oldham, again from your neck of the woods. I know you know Andy.
Yeah.
He was one of the very first ever rally factory riders. He was national #1. And then you had Darren Nelson. He was Robinson, right? When you were Robinson as well.
Yeah.
Darren Nelson, Matthew Doran. I had lots of battles with him. He was Talker from Wigan.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, we would drive up there and race with those guys. And they were the fastest dudes in the country. And then coming into 84, it kind of was a little bit of a turnaround. You had Anthony Howes, a guy from the South Coast, riding for MRD, rode for Tim. He kind of came in. He was a little bit bigger and stronger than definitely than me, and he kind of dominated for a couple of years. Started to get closer to him, 85. And that was probably the first year I got a national #1 plate. Anthony won. There was two federations. Anthony won UK BMX. I won MBMXA, but Anthony won the European Championships as well. So he still kind of had a little edge on me. But yeah, that's where I kind of started, getting some wins. And then 86, we had another guy that jumped into our class that came out of nowhere, Neil Wood. Again, familiar name for a lot. So for the next
brother.
Yeah, 80. Yeah, 80 was fast as well. Yeah. So raced Neil and Anthony. We all battled, in amateurs through 86, 87. Not just in UK but Europe as well. And yeah, we have some great battles. But I think racing those guys set myself and Neil up, I think, for a good pro career. I think Anthony, he went on and retired in the later 80s, but obviously me and Neil went on to racing. Obviously Europe, US, and careers in AA Pro out here. So I think it was good breeding ground for both of us. And some really great racing back then in England. Amateurs in your age group. Jeremy Kenning, John Greaves. Just those national age groups groups back in the 80s, everybody was a factory rider, and to make a national final was a big deal.
It was hard. I mean, I didn't do anywhere near as good as you did. Like I say, we had a tough. There's lots of good competitors in my age group in our region as well. But there was, nationally as well. When I first started, there was John Greaves, who was national number one, that was from my region, and then, then there was other people like Nicky Restall and like you say, Jeremy Kennings, that was huge. Anthony Revel and John Zottel. But what I wanted to ask you, Dale, was like, I was quite small and not strong in my age group, so I used to get smoked by them guys. But you weren't huge either until you weren't big until you got a bit older. But what what do you think it was that you were able to compete with Anthony Howells and them guys, because they were bigger than you. I know Anthony. Looking back now I can imagine how many races Anthony would have won more if he hadn't have had his Skyway wheels on. I mean,
I know.
he was racing on Skyways, and you were still on your 1 3/8 up until about what 14, 15 or something like that.
15, yeah. Anthony won the European Championships in 1985. I was in that final, and I was on 1 3/8 wheels, and he won with Skyway graphites and a front brake. He was that good.
Crazy, really. Just showed how much like power he must have had for that, age group. Same with Jeremy Kennings in my age group. I'd come out the gate and he'd just pedal off. But there was small guys in my age group that were really fast as well. Like I raced him at the flipping Masters Worlds in Birmingham. I don't know why his name is skipping me right now. But he was only Keith Bryceland. He was
Keith,
really
yeah, great rider.
He was really small but super fast. He was strong. I mean, Dylan wasn't big, but Dylan was strong as well. I was kind of small and weak. But did you have to do some specific training to try and compete with them bigger guys, or did you just have the natural speed in your legs?
No, I struggled. Like I say, I mean, you talked about it, and Grot Bags, Paul Roberts, another guy a little bit older than us, but same thing. We're just all so small, and we raced monsters. Anthony Howells, these guys had mustaches and stuff. And shaving in 14, 15. Same with you with Kenning.
Yeah.
I just I still remember my dad, my track Nottingham, and it's still the same layout now. I remember my dad drawing the track and then showing me with the pens like the fastest line around the track, basically high lows, inside, outside, drifting, setting yourself up for a corner, just like stuff you see in the magazines, like, they do little drawings and tell you, how to go around the track fast and stuff. I still remember my dad telling me that just with my local track. And then, I really had to always not come from the back, but come from third, fourth, even in a regional race, I had fast dudes in my region. So always had to battle through the pack, and just the love and passion for wanting, for racing. And we're all the same. We all had our helmets on in the cars as kids, and we couldn't wait to go to the track, and we wanted to get there before anybody. We didn't want to go home after the race. We wanted to stay and ride. I just had so much love and passion for racing. And, videos were hard to get then. VHS tapes, would always buy any, sometimes they would film nationals in the 80s, and you could buy the tape at the next race, for £10 or something. So, and then just watch. I mean, I still have 200 plus VHS tapes at home, from 40 years ago. We bought every tape we could, and just, it wasn't really even studying it. I know now they have the iPads and they're looking at, and I just loved watching racing. And I think between the passion and studying, well, again, not studying, just watching it because I loved it. I think it was all part of the, piece of my, cake of being, of growing in racing and getting good. And then, like I say, when I finally got some size, which was probably about 15, and then you can add in a bit of power, then, I could win from behind, but I could also, when I got strong, I could win from the front as well, but I've always had a hard age group. Like I say, Neil Wood came in. We raced each other for the first time at 12, and Neil was always stronger than me. Even in our pro career, just a big, strong guy and aggressive. And I, he would be rough with me, but I would give it back. And I think myself and Neil really pushed each other, and it really helped us long term. From just racing a lot, good, aggressive, hard racing. And by the time we got to the US, and that was like, well, that's how it is here anyway. Just had another 20 dudes in. So I think it was all, it was all like building for later down the road without even knowing it. There was no really future like looking, I'm going to be a pro or anything. We just did it. You're the same. We just did it because we love riding bikes. There wasn't really a long-term plan.
Yeah. Well, so obviously, like as I say, I was similar to you. I just absolutely loved it, and my dad took me racing week in week out, and I was nowhere near as successful as you when I was younger. Like I done all right. Like I got national, regional #1 year, and I'd always be sort of top three in my region. But I'd get to nationals, and sometimes I wouldn't even get out the quarters or whatever. Like when I was kind of 12, 13, and until I got to 14 and 15. Um, I mean, I used to remember my dad saying to me, my dad was never like a sporty racer type person. He just liked taking me, and he could fix my bike and loved me doing it. Um, but I remember he always used to say to me, like, I always used to go really good in practice and then maybe in my motos, but I'd never listen to him about eating. And so by the time I got later on in the day, I didn't think about it at the time, but I'd lost loads of I had no energy left basically. So as I got to the races that got harder, I was getting slower. Do you know what I mean? Which in adult life and racing bikes, I've learned you've got to fuel your body. But did you have that kind of knowledge at that age? Like, did you kind of do bits of training and know what to eat and stuff, or not?
Not really. I mean, in the 80s, I think everybody that was good was just because we just rode all the time and raced all the time. I would race sometimes Nottingham, Tuesday, Wednesday, whatever it was. I'd
Yeah,
race at Derby on Thursday. We'd race a club meeting on Saturday, a regional or a national on Sunday. We just raced and rode so much back then. It was just money in the bank, I think, for down the road. Training wise, we had a gate at home. My sister raced as well. So, my dad would shout us
really
in
good.
at
Well,
a certain time. We had pretty nice sized backyard. So we'd have a gate and we'd sprint into the grass and we'd have like a little loop and come back up and do it again. So we would do gates, little fun running. It was no training program. You just kept active as kids. So a little bit of running in the winter. I didn't really tap into training. I mean, I turned superclass at 16, which was 1988. And I think we're all doing the same kind of thing. Even people we were still easing into work, drinking, raving. So I think everybody, at least in England, was doing the same thing. I don't think there was anybody super serious until a couple of years later when Jamie Staff came in, and that's where for me is like, Jamie came in, at a young age, he'd been doing weights and strong and serious. And I kind of, for the first 2 or 3 years in Superclass, it wasn't easy, but I still won, the British Championships and national titles. Not easy, but I could win the overalls. But when I saw Jamie come in, and Jamie came right in at the early 90s, where I was in that, I don't know if I want to do this anymore. I like what you like, going raving, girls and stuff. So I was like, I could still get away with just showing up on a Sunday and being a top three and win races just on talent and everything I'd done as a kid that was, like I said, in the bank. But then when Jamie came in with just strength, motivation, he really wanted to win and beat me. It put me on like, okay, what do I do here? And I was, fighting the social life as well.
yeah.
But he did come in and he beat me, and I didn't like it.